everybody. Welcome to Wine Wednesday Real Estate.
Everyone. Cheers.
Cheers. On this cold January
Polar
vortex day.
The polar vortex has hit.
We're here to bring a little warmth into your life and start a little conversation today about how to turn a losing offer possibly into a winning offer as a backup.
Because we all want to be winners.
Yes, and in our hearts you all are already winners.
Who's a winner? I'm
But
a winner.
there are times in this market, because the way things have been going, with multiple offers, there's only one lucky person that gets it, and sometimes
winner.
and sometimes many unfortunate non-winners. But there are some things we can do, possibly by putting some contract language into your
Yes.
counter offer, or however we end up writing it up.
Right?
But we can do some things that might possibly still get you that house after all.
And what would that be?
That would be a backup offer.
Backup offer.
Backup offer.
Has anyone out there ever done a backup offer?
Yes, but
Not for
we've
myself.
never had one. I've never had one actually come to fruition, like where it ever actually happened. But I'm seeing a lot these days, and tell me if you are as well, where a lot of contracts are falling apart because people are rushed into these decisions, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden people get cold feet, and the next thing you know, you are getting calls from the listing agent, hey, your house is back on the market, but we didn't put a backup offer in.
Yeah, right.
So let's talk about that, because I think, didn't you just write a backup offer?
I did write a backup offer. Mine was a unique situation though, because it was an the condo is not FHA approved, and they were trying to get an FHA approval for the condo, and my clients are conventional. So we wrote a backup offer, and now we're just waiting for it to fall out of contract because they can't get an FHA approval.
Yeah.
So
A few little hoops to jump through there, but still good for your client.
Just a couple.
So
huh?
just a couple
He said
hoops.
some hoops.
Oh,
I said just
yeah.
a couple.
Amanda's a little sick today, so
She's not listening.
her senses are dulled.
I'm not sick. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Fine.
So, but basically what we do is we write a little clause in a term to, oh my goodness, I know. It's just a clause you put into a contract that if the first offer falls apart, you can be what's considered backup position. So then if in the instance of Amanda's, when that falls apart because it's not going to work out, if she is the secondary position, then once that happens, the listing agent notifies her that it fell apart, and now you're in the primary position.
One thing that actually the agent told me when I wrote the offer, because I emailed him and I was like, well, do you think that they're going to try to switch, the current buyers are going to try to switch to a conventional loan? Like,
Right.
is this even going to go through?
Right.
And he said, the fact that a lot of people don't know is once you have a backup offer in place, the current offer can't change their terms.
Really?
And I was like, what? I didn't know that.
I guess that
it
makes
was changed
sense.
Any attorneys watching?
They said it was changed a few years ago. So that
Because then it's a
people-
new offer.
that
Because
people
any
can't
counter
change.
offer, and so then they have to basically do
Yeah.
a counter offer, which is a new offer, and then that would negate
Yeah.
the previous offer.
Yeah.
And then if once
Because
that
I didn't
goes,
think,
that makes
I
sense.
assumed,
I would
because
never
the current
have-
buyers
yeah.
won't terminate. And I'm like, well, they're not terminating, then they're gonna,
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
then they probably won't go through, right?
Right.
And so I was just kind of, like telling my clients, like, it probably don't, get
Yeah,
sad that you're
yeah.
buying this, because anything can happen with the current offer and
Yeah.
you might not get it. And,
So what do-
then, that's what he told me, that they can't change, now they can't switch to conventional because we're the backup offer. which
so
is
you
very
are already
interesting.
conventional.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then probably the terms are pretty much the same or close
Yep.
to what they had before, because they
Yeah.
probably did it as a counter offer and put that stuff in there. So
Yeah,
that makes
interesting.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I was like, interesting.
I don't think anybody does.
Right.
Brea says hi, everyone.
Hi, our favorite person to Brea. So, some benefits to this are, because what normally happens if the seller doesn't have a backup is we go back into the active status, the showings start again, and there's a chance, if it was multiple offers before, you're going to get right back into that multiple offer situation.
And it's stressful.
Yeah, so this way, if the seller's agent, usually what happens is the seller agent says, hey, they accepted another offer, but would your client like to or consider being a backup.
Mhm.
And so then if the buyer agrees to that, then they're the backup.
Right.
This falls apart, and then automatically they become, once the seller
Question,
notifies them.
Do you think that people or agents are pushing for backup offers to use it as
For remedy,
negotiating
yeah.
for the current offer they have in place?
Well, Lord knows I've had that
Because
happen.
I think that
I think it's playing all of
it's
it. Like,
right. It's kind of a threat almost.
It is
like,
a threat.
well, we're
certainly.
not giving you that, but we have another offer in place.
Yeah.
So do you really want it, or do you
Yeah.
want to lose
Well,
the house?
I think where that comes into play is during the inspection and the remedy.
and
you know?
or appraisal.
So we are, yeah, and I mean,
Oh, for
absolutely.
sure, yeah.
Why wouldn't they? You know, I mean, our duty as your agent, if we're on the seller side in that
Yeah.
situation, I'm doing everything I can to get my seller the best
yeah.
possible situation. And if it's, I mean, now in those situations, the other buyer that's the backup is still going to be able to do their inspection and have all those contingencies.
Mhm.
So if these major things come up in an inspection, the other buyer's likely to find the same problems, and it's not going
Right.
to resolve itself.
Right.
However, sometimes buyers will be a little bit more nitpicky
Right.
on a remedy request, and they're like, no, we're not doing any of that, because,
We have a backup offer.
We have a
Don't
backup,
forget, we've
yeah.
got a backup offer.
and
And
you know,
the
you
backup
do hear
offer
that.
could have been like, hey, we'll buy it as is.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so,
sure,
then,
no,
so then
sure.
they can use
Yeah.
that as their
The
negotiating
backup
power.
offers want the house
Right.
Yeah.
badly enough to write
Yeah.
the backup offer, so they're gonna write whatever they can out.
That's kind of
so that,
sad.
Well, I mean, and the thing is,
I mean, that's the nature of the market we've been having,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, we've seen instances, amongst our agents even,
Uh-huh.
where 10 to 20 or more offers on properties if you
Yeah.
really get a hot one.
Mhm.
I mean, normally I think in multiple offers maybe you'll get 3 or 4,
Yes,
as you say,
yeah,
like
yeah.
maybe at most, usually if there's multiple offers. But there are situations where it does go
20,
crazy.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
goes crazy.
They're like, oh, this would be the 20th offer. Like, what?
And in those situations, unless
I
the
know.
backup offer is really, really good, I don't know
Yeah.
if you do that because, unless the backup's just, like you said, willing to take the top off on the price and
Yeah.
buy it as is, then maybe it makes sense. Because the seller, you don't want to have to go through all that stuff
Showings
again.
again.
So,
Right.
Well, and it's a comfort level. I mean,
well, sure. I
who
mean,
cares what happens? We've
as
got
a
backup
seller,
offer.
as a seller, maybe there's, they've already bought another house, so they don't want to be locked into more mortgage payments. So this, I guess, goes to the other side of the equation too. What we're talking about today is what sellers do with backup offers.
Mhm.
And so trying to have a strong backup offer in place could help you with your leverage, as we've discussed
Mhm.
here, and multiple steps of the process.
Yeah.
And so it's just like Jenny said, the nature of the situation we're in these days. And unfortunately for buyers, it does fall to where the sellers are carrying the weight, in the negotiations.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Seller's market.
but the backup, unless you've written it out in other terms in your contract, and by writing it out, I mean negating the normal terms in a contract, you're still entitled to an inspection, the appraisal contingency, and all that stuff. Again, if you haven't said we'll take it as is or no, appraisal is not a contingency, the normal things stay as long as that's not part of what's negotiated as the backup offer.
And the thing that some people don't know as well is when you're buying a house and you are the backup offer, you're not the primary, then you have the right to terminate the backup offer if you find a house before you're made the primary
Or
contract.
if you
for
change
that.
So-
your mind even.
Yeah,
you know,
if you
like-
change
Yeah.
your mind, yeah.
Word to the wise is keep looking. If you're in
Don't
a
stop
backup
looking,
offer,
yeah,
if you're number
for
2
sure.
or 3 or 4, whatever the case may be, keep
Don't
looking.
stop looking,
Don't
yes.
stop looking with your hopes set.
Right,
Yeah.
that you're gonna get that house
Yeah.
because you may not ever.
Chances are you won't.
Yeah, because
I think maybe
again,
we talked about this, I think there's a 10 to 15% chance
Yeah.
at most
Yeah.
where you're gonna win in a backup situation.
And something like my situation, they're most likely going to get it because the current offer doesn't have the right financing.
Right.
Mhm.
So,
And so, there's a lot of little nuances and I guess not necessarily tricks, but things that you need to be careful of in this process. And this is where your agent's going to help you through all of that, because, we are more familiar with the process, of course. And then we're going to talk to you if you're the buyer about being in backup position and what that all means for you. And so, like Amanda said, it doesn't mean that you're stuck with the house. Like if you changed your mind or, you find something else that's better.
Mhm.
maybe your loan terms, maybe the interest rates went up by the time that house
Yeah.
came back to you. So once interest rates go up, maybe your financing terms aren't what you want them to be anymore. So it's
What
like lots of things can
happens
happen.
so you write a backup offer and the current people, they don't want to buy, the primary contract doesn't want to buy it due to inspections. And so then the second people are made, and say it was like a foundation or like a
Right.
material defect that
Right.
their sellers aren't willing to fix. If the buyers are made primary contract, are they able to not go through with
Well,
it?
so they're still entitled to the residential property disclosure, which
Okay,
if
Should
something
be
is
updated.
yes, absolutely should be updated if something like that is found.
okay,
And then by the property disclosure and the contract terms, the buyer basically has 3 days from when
but
that
they
is made
will
available.
have to pay their inspection for their inspection.
Well, no,
to
like
happen. Oh.
if they are made aware of a
Primary, okay.
defect in the residential property disclosure
Okay,
And they're
by
not
the
satisfied.
and they're not satisfied,
Mhm.
they have 3 days from the time that property disclosure is made available to
Oh,
them. So
really?
that to
to avoid it?
terminate the contract.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't know that.
So
So what's interesting, well, okay, I'll be honest. I've never had a backup offer move into primary position.
right.
Either the buyers have had another
think I have
house that
either.
they found, or the first offer went through. But what I was thinking is I've never been presented with a new property disclosure. Should something, but
Yeah.
you
Well, I
know,
think as an agent we should ask. I mean, if something
I think
has
that's
fallen
a very
Well,
out,
yeah, why did it fall out of contract, I guess.
Yeah.
right.
You
So
would
if so agents, I mean, I don't know if you're whoever's watching that's an agent. I'd be curious to know if you've ever had that happen. Had you asked for the
so
property disclosure or why it fell out?
I've had situations as the listing agent and as the actual seller where the contract fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a backup offer, but the contract fell apart due to inspection.
Sure.
So it's my responsibility then to update that property disclosure. What I would caution people is look at the date on the property disclosure, because a lot of times these are filled out prior to listing. And so if the date is prior to the date that it fell out of contract, I'm gonna ask, were there any updates to the property disclosure? Because more than likely, if it's more than 10 days past the
Well,
contract purchase, then that seller has been presented with a inspection report.
yeah,
And they probably know about more defects than were in that original property
yeah,
disclosure.
and make no mistake, that happens. Because
Yes.
I've
So look at dates on
been
these
watching
things.
a listing that I was in
Yeah.
contract on and it fell out, and
They
it has
did
not been updated
No.
yet.
And maybe that's just on, is it still listed as active?
Uh-huh.
Or, oh, okay, well,
What's
So-
the address?
I'm not-
I'm just kidding.
let's wrap them out. We're gonna wrap them out here on live
I'm
Facebook.
totally joking. Nope.
But, and that's
Is
another
my
thing.
face all red? I'm feeling like I'm getting hot.
Do you have a sinus infection?
I'm
It's the
sitting
wine.
by you.
The wine's hitting. You
I
can't
know you
give
are
somebody
sick,
a
right?
sinus infection.
If it's
but
viral,
you can get
like,
sick.
I can?
Yeah, you're sick. You
I'm
are
not.
a
Do you have a
walking
I'm fine.
virus.
I'm a walking virus.
Yes.
No, I'm not. I'm not sick.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay.
You ever watch
Okay.
those movies about like mass contamination?
Right.
What's the one?
Am I going to start the zombie apocalypse?
Was
I'm
it
gonna reel
Dustin
you guys back
Hoffman?
in here.
It starts with they're on a plane and the guy no wait, I'm confusing two things. A movie theater and
Yeah.
somebody coughs or sneezes and they show the thing flying and then
Yeah.
someone laughs
Yeah.
and breathes
Yeah.
it in and then that's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
goes to pot.
I'm not sick.
She's
I'm
sick.
fine.
So I guess the moral of the story here, bringing it back around.
Yes.
Moral of the story is, it's not necessarily over, until it's over.
Mhm.
So, if the house, a lot of times people really get emotionally connected to these properties when you're shopping. And so
Yeah.
you write an offer and it's super disappointing when you don't get it. So, if that's the situation, you're like, man, I really wanted that house and you just can't get over it, talk to your agent about becoming the backup.
What do you think of people still showing their house for backup? Do you think that's fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why not?
Um,
Everyone who saw it
So
had
as
the
an
opportunity
agent
to
though,
be backup.
I discourage so the ones that are contingent escape, so if it's
Well,
like it's,
Yeah, if you
based
see
upon,
contingent escape,
they have a home, the buyer for that house has a home to sell.
Right, and so they are accepting other offers.
Yeah.
And it's not even like really a backup offer. You're
Right.
gonna be made the primary contract within 72
Right,
hours.
right,
As long, if they can't, you
right.
know,
If they can't match your.
sell their house.
Yeah. So, but you know, I'm always a little leery with my buyers and taking them through just a contingent finance and inspection house because the chances are so small.
Right.
And I don't want to get them attached to it. At
Well,
that
if they're-
point. Now, if they were part of the original offer and process and all of that, I think
Mhm.
that's a different story. But I don't know about taking them back.
I'll
through.
usually ask where they are in the
Yeah.
contract.
And I-
like
you know,
if
and
they're
agents
past
say that.
inspections, then
Yeah, and if it's vacant, like I'll let client, like if they're just starting to look, it is in contract, like I'll let them go see it.
yeah.
But putting people out of their home,
Well,
yeah.
typically
Right,
my
but it's usually
sellers.
only vacant, I think, that they
Right.
allow people to go through for backup.
Yeah.
Well,
And you
it's
have
up to you.
agents
Yeah,
say
it's
that,
up to
hey,
the
just go
seller.
ahead and show
Yeah,
up for
it is up
backup,
for
you
the,
know, like.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
up to the seller.
But you know, I
typically
rarely
my
do
sellers
that.
haven't wanted to. They're like, we're done. We don't.
Right,
Well, I
who wants
mean,
to
it's
leave
an
their, like,
inconvenience.
clean and
Ugh.
leave?
Well, I mean, especially
It's
on
a
a day
pain
like
to
today.
sell,
like,
to
yeah.
show houses. I mean, yeah, like who wants to go
I
out?
couldn't imagine showing a house today.
No, and I remember back in the day,
Decline,
like when there were
decline,
so
decline.
many foreclosed properties, and like they were all winterized, and you'd show during the middle of the winter, and no one had shoveled, and you got to truck through the snow to get to
Yeah.
the front door, and then there's no
Whatever.
heat,
You know, and those
there's
houses
no
are
lights,
cold.
and you're showing
Yeah.
them in the evening, you know, when it's dark at 5 o'clock.
Using your phone.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyways, we digress again.
Yeah.
But so. Talk to
Stage
your
your
agent about
appointments,
talk to your agent about backup offers, what it means for you, and whether or not it's a good idea. Continue your search,
Yep.
whether or not you're considering it or not, and then just maybe even keep an eye on it. You know that if something does happen, have your agent maybe set up a search on that house. That if there's a status change, that maybe you get an email or that it's back on the market or you know something like
Right.
that. So the end isn't always the end. You know, in this market, I think it is happening more than it normally does. But talk to your agent about ways that maybe it could possibly still happen. And you know, you never know. You never know unless you ask and unless you try.
Yeah.
Typically, it'll be if you don't write the backup offer, then.
Yeah, right. But then you're
Then
back
it
in
would've
multiple
happened.
offers, and
It's
then
just
you're
the nature of
That,
real
that's
Then
estate.
you're in the
a good
emotional
point right
loop,
there.
right?
The reason that you wouldn't go the backup offer is if it was a competitive property and you're the backup offer, it won't go back on the market, and you
There's
become
no
primary.
bidding
war.
Yeah, there's no bidding
Yeah.
wars anymore. Like you are in contract, and it won't.
Yeah.
No one
But
else has the chance.
How much of this business and buying and selling is that? I mean, you know, property sits
Look,
on
if
the
you make a
market
good
for
enough-
a year, you write an offer.
Well,
and
that's
yeah,
inevitable.
multiple offers. Guess what?
It
I
is
know,
inevitably what
lying.
happens. It's amazing.
Always.
Like-
I always
It
warn
is.
my clients.
I know.
That is exactly what happens.
Yep.
And you know, because I've had clients that want to sleep on it, and I'm like,
Right.
oh, you can't sleep in this market. Don't do that. Like,
You can't
know,
sleep
like,
in this market.
No sleeping
Only
for you.
sleep after we've written the offer and you signed it. Don't even like let me write it, and you're like, I'll sign it in the morning. No.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
no.
Right. Like when I say you need to write an offer ASAP, like you gotta
Please
write
listen.
it
And
ASAP.
it inevitably takes buyers going through a losing battle
Mm-hmm.
once or twice before they really get it.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the real estate game, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but if you have questions about this, you think of something after we get done, you know where to find us.
Or if you're thinking about buying a house or selling a house, we are
We're
licensed
ready.
real estate agents, so
And
we
we
can
are
do that
ready
for
to
you.
do it for you right now. So find us on wwnre.com, jennyreitz.com, Amanda sells Columbus.com, 43homes.com, and of course,
Have a wonderful,
We wanna
warm
talk to you.
Day. Yeah, stay warm today.
stay warm, get your animals
Don't
inside,
let your
please.
pipes freeze.
Yes.
Cheers,
Thank you
everybody.
so much for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday.
See
3 o'clock.
ya. Will you shut me down?
I will.
Thank you.
Movie recording has stopped out.